Jake, a lot of people have been talking about Plaza of Heroes. Oh my God, it's a staple commander land. You gotta get it for every single commander deck you're playing. I'm gonna buy 30 of them. Pre-ordering right now for $13. Let's go over it. Taps to add a colorless, so it can tap for mana.
Great.
You can tap to add 1 mana of any color and spend it only to cast a legendary. So it definitely...
That's really good.
It helps you cast your commander. You tap it to add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. So once your commander's out, it taps for all of your commander's colors. And then the last ability is pay 3, tap it, exile it. Target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. It's just like, you are really not getting rid of me. First impressions.
I mean, having something that you can get back with a Crucible of Worlds, a Sun Titan, that has essentially an oh shit button built into it. Like all the other stuff is whatever, dude. Like the tap to add generic mana, great.
Fine.
Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Spend it only on a legendary spell, sure, great. There's tons of lands out there that tap for any color. The thing that I care about on this land is that final clause that says exile Plaza of Heroes, target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. That is an oh shit button. That is just specifically save that for the most important thing on the battlefield. You have a freaking heroic intervention built into a land for 3 mana tap. I mean, I think it's good.
So I want to make a note about this. I did see a bunch of people talking about this on Twitter and on Reddit. This one has caused a lot of waves.
Oh, you exile it. Fuck, I'm stupid. You can't get it back.
Yeah, you do not sack it.
Oh, never mind. I'm dumb. I need to read. God, everybody in chat's got to be like, Jake can't even read anything.
So with Plaza of Heroes, this second ability, no, this third ability, you got to note, add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. So if you're playing a 5-color deck that is Kenrith the Returned King,
I was wrong.
What color, Jake? Here's a test. Plaza of Heroes says tap to add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. If you only have Kenrith on the battlefield, what color mana can that thing tap for?
White.
Only white, chat.
Yeah.
Only white. Same thing if you've got Najila. It only taps for red.
Yeah. Because it's in its color identity in the top right.
Exactly.
So yeah, that makes sense.
The color of the permanent, not the color identity of it. And so people are going to misuse this
so much worse.
People are going to absolutely misuse this third ability, especially in 5-color decks like Kenrith. Now look, in a multicolor deck, at the very base, let's talk about the floor of this card. This is a card that it's a command tower for just your commander. And it's an oh shit button 1 time, like Jake just found out. It's a 1-time oh shit button to save your commander. I think that this will get
something
a legendary creature, right?
A legendary creature.
Yeah. It can save more than just that.
There are legendary sorceries that came out of Dominaria last time and that kind of stuff that you can use for the second ability. But yeah, I mean, it is a 1-time oh shit button for your commander. That's essentially
But it's a hell of an oh shit button. Hexproof and indestructible.
It's heroic intervention on a land once. That's what it is.
So I gotta say, this card to me looks like, I mean, obviously it goes in any legendary matters. Legendary tribal, this is definitely in there. Because that second ability is going to get to cast way more than just your commander. And the third ability is going to be way more relevant. But at $13, I think that this card will be ubiquitous enough that in a year, it's more than $13. Pre-ordering at 13 right now. I think, however, that this is a huge candidate to be pushed into precons, in which case that will bring the price down. But I do think that this card is going to be ubiquitous enough I mean, it looks like it was specifically designed for Commander. It's for Commander, just short of having the word Commander on it.
Yeah. It is, in my opinion, really good. Someone said, so you're just going to leave 3 mana up. I think it was John Reed. Yeah, no,
Yes.
I definitely not. I think it would be well placed in a reactive deck. A deck with counter spells, that kind of stuff would make sense, because then someone does go to remove it. If you're not countering it, then yeah, you can use it. There are going to be times where you have to tap it for mana and you don't get to use it, but once you get to that stage of the game where you have a bunch of mana on the battlefield, then yeah,
that's what I'm
have
saying.
A card that's
you're not leaving this
versatile
up from the moment you play it. No, you're not leaving 4 mana, the 3 to play it, and the tap of this card itself. But at the time that you would want an effect like this, hell yeah, you're going to have 4 mana, including Plaza of Heroes, 3 mana with Plaza of Heroes also. However you want to look at it, yeah, hell yeah, you're going to have that up.
I mean, and it's also the kind of card that you can bluff with too.
Sure.
Like, that's the kind of thing where once you have it on the battlefield, you can kind of play with your commander loose. You can kind of like, or whatever legendary creature you're protecting with it, you can play loose with it, because you're like, oh, I don't know, am I going to use it? And then people start looking at, oh, do I do a board wipe? It's one of those cards that you have to like play around. If there's a board wipe and you're going to be coming up soon, use it on your commander, make your commander indestructible, and now all of a sudden you already have board position after a wipe. So I definitely think there's something here. I don't know how expensive it ends up. I feel like it might already be appropriately priced.
I think yes, I like the price of this for what it does.
Yeah, Blood Moon shuts it down like every non-basic land.
You've got bigger problems if Blood Moon is shutting this down in the deck 100%. That wants this card. 10 to $15 seems reasonable for this card, especially if it's staple-ish, especially if it proves to be as strong as it looks, even though I think it's a little less strong than people are identifying it as right out of the gate. But I do think that it is very strong. I do think that it's got the potential to be in a lot of different commander decks, not just legendary tribal. Voltron.
Oh yeah, it has commander application, and it also has legendary creature matters decks application. I completely agree there too. Yeah. Heroic Intervention is a good card. It's been trending upward. If you look at Heroic Intervention's chart, the chart is on the rise. I want to say this really quick. We missed the super chat. It came from Sushi Yum Yums. Thank you again, Sushi, for the $2 super chat. Number 1 most proxied card in EDH if it sticks at 13. Yeah, maybe so. But I just, for me, I think it's definitely worth having. I don't think every deck wants it.
I would put this. So the last commander deck I built was Raphael, Devil, Demon, Tribal. And a lot of my synergy was built around having Raphael on the battlefield, because I had 2 ways that I used this commander. I could use it as I've got 3 or 4 devils, 3 or 4 demons that are all 5/5 flying tramplers, on the battlefield already. I'm going to play Raphael as an enchantment for 5 mana, give them all +1/+1, and most relevantly, lifelink. So that was one way that I would play Raphael, depending on what I drew and how the game was going. The other way is to get Raphael out there as quickly as possible and use that second ability at the beginning of each end step. If a creature card was put into your graveyard from anywhere, create a 1/1 devil creature token that when it dies, you can deal a damage to any target. By the way, it also is a 2/2 and has lifelink because of Raphael's ability. So when I use this commander, and there's a lot of commanders like this that have one thing they do or some sort of passive enchantment like ability that you can build around as well. When I use it for that passive enchantment like ability, I want a card like Plaza of Heroes to protect it, period.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a 2-color commander, so
it's just redundancy, right? Because there's other ways to protect your commander, but having it tacked onto a land, because now you're taking up less slots. And in Raphael, it makes sense because it's only a 2-color deck. See, the decks that aren't going to want this as much are the decks that are spread across multiple colors, because your land base becomes, in a budget sense, shock lands and fetch lands, and all of making sure that your land base is good. And then maybe you get to run a wasteland, maybe you get to run a strip mine, maybe you get to run an Urborg and a couple extra things depending on the build. But the more you go into like these specialty lands,
Right, like
the
War
less
Room.
consistent your mana base becomes.
I've seen-
like Ghost Quarter,
Right.
War Room,
Thespian
Rogue's
Stage.
Passage,
Yeah.
all of these
Homeward
different
Path.
things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I compare it a lot to War Room. Like recently with War Room, I've been just slotting this into all of my monocolor and two color decks because a lot of times single color, two color, you can get your mana pretty taken care of on your first like 25 to 35 or 25 to 30 lands. And then you've got like, you know, 1 to 7 lands to play with, like Jake's talking about, where you can pull in the utility effects, tacking on stuff like Homeward Path, tacking on stuff like Rogue's Passage, War Room.
Yeah.
And so
like the first stuff that I add are like wastelands and stuff
Right.
like that, where I'm like, I know that, you know, I'm
Well, you
building
hate-
this kind of
you
deck.
hate
I know I
fun.
need,
you love
well,
Wasteland.
but I'm not playing it alongside a Crucible of Worlds.
Right,
You know, if I
right.
was, then that would be nice and super degenerate. But if somebody does have a Cabal Coffers and I'm sitting there going, you know, all right, thank God I have this way to deal with that, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't have a lot of those slots the more colors you go up. That's the big thing to keep in mind. It's like,
Absolutely, absolutely. But if you think, I mean, if it's so contingent on your commander, like I know that exile word on there, we cry in Muldrotha about it, but a deck like Muldrotha that is late game so dependent on that commander staying on the battlefield. Not only does Plaza of Heroes tap for 3 mana, any of the 3 colors of mana to cast Muldrotha, but once Muldrotha's on battlefield, it also taps for blue or green or black. And if you do want to leave Plaza of Heroes and 3 mana open, which again to me doesn't seem like that big of a concern, Muldrotha is going to
especially
get
if you're staying
hexproof
up
and
for-
indestructible.
yeah, and say you're staying up anyway for like a removal spell or a counter spell or something like that.
For sure.
And then there's something that, all of a sudden a board wipe. Okay, well, that's advantageous because now they're taking care of this opponent's this and this
Right.
opponent's this. Might as well use my land here. We'll save the counter spell. We'll save this, and
Yeah.
we'll make my dude indestructible. It's just versatility. It's just more options.
When in the
it's a
case
very
of-
strong effect on a land.
With just the example of Muldrotha, which I'm using that as an example because this would be sort of a subpar pick in that deck because it says exile, period. Even though it's
Yeah.
going to tap for all the colors to cast Muldrotha, even though it's going to protect Muldrotha one time late game. Think about Muldrotha. You're playing a lot of cards like this that are low cost permanents that do a thing on a death trigger so that you can, or an ETB trigger that can be sacrificed so you can get it back. So in Muldrotha, you're playing 1 permanent, 2 mana. You're going to have the 3 mana open to be able to exile this and target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible. I'm just using some examples. I feel like I'm kind of arguing both points here, that it is strong, but it is not as strong as people are thinking it is. I just think that this one is one of the most interesting cards that we've seen so far out of Dominaria United, with the potential highest ceiling, but also the potential greatest fall price-wise.